The Nectar of Devotion by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 15 is called Spontaneous Devotional Service. The Raganuga Bhakti. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:1-29 reminds us that it is typical for people to form their devotion to divinity through their sensual desires. That progresses to hope and fear, and then disassociation and association will be part of that relationship. Now, we are tested in life through the regulations, because religion is a regulating thing. Divinity will do away with mere desire once that true love of divinity comes in. Being afraid of the opposition or being jealous is not true devotion. Srimad Bhagavatam, in its first canto, teaches us about the oneness of divinity. In Arabic, they use the term tawheed. And there, the focus is on making the idea of an absolute personal, making the idea of a spirit related to the spirit of spirits, making the idea of personality related to the greatest personality in all qualities. To those who don't make it personal, the Brahma Jyoti is available through the idea of no qualities. But it is important for us to see differentiation as manifesting of divinity. And different people will have different senses of their relationship with divinity. And some of those are actually the best for them. The Brahmanda Purana reminds us that the demons can be killed by divinity in a way that allows them to become absorbed in a consciousness of the Absolute. Because what kept them from surrendering, that satanic commandment not to surrender, surrender is a way to translate the term Islam. Submission, surrender. That what keeps them from that, well, that is what's killed, right? The Sufis talk about being killed too, being burnt and all that stuff, and it's like, well, but they mean it in that sort of sense, right? The Bhagavad Gita reminds us that there is a beyond of the beyond. There's this relative causal, there's this relative heaven, but there's greater heaven than anything, not only that you can imagine, but that you can reference. We're striving for the greatest heaven, although we're striving to be the best devotees. So, the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-19 reminds us of the connection process, the yoga that relates to individual or local rather than universal principles. But through that, we can get merged into the absolute sphere. And those who aren't quite ready for the relationship with divinity beyond bounds, they may be addressed by the Kundalini and other such things. And anybody beyond those bounds can be addressed that way too. But they're kept in the game because of those sensual, emotional, psychiatric highs that so come. And I've talked a lot about different types and trying to achieve those different types. But, you know, that's an entry gate, right? And yes, we're not the sun. We're not divinity. And we don't become partners in divinity. But we want to become such that our reference is in reference to the being attacked by different types of bugs here. Now, we do have particular abilities. There are universal things, but particular things where we can excel, whether that's doing extra or maybe our specific duty is in different ways. And certainly, those things will take us from being the servant to the friend, and on to further stations of love. Kavaraja Krishnadas reminds us that being a karmi is really about satisfying ourself. But what we need to do is to do what is best for, what's most pleasing to divinity. We should get a sense of that. We should follow in the footstep of those who even connected their most base desires. Because, of course, the thing about the cowherd girlfriends, as a metaphor, relates to two things. It relates to that spousal love of God. So that type of relationship is, according to the divine principles, the divine consciousness, but also the socially inappropriate level. But we can't just skip to being socially inappropriate, can we? Because a lot of people say, well, because how can you really be about pleasing divinity if you're just doing all sorts of violations, right? Now, mere association or mere mixing of the sexes is not what the spiritual life is about. And there are those in the past that, especially because of their influence, we really can't compare to it. And some things will seem to be of one sort, but they're really of another. So let's not be too hasty in judging the intentions of others.